Hi everybody, my name is Zilaida and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Locals Compass. We're a travel marketplace. And I am here today to talk about one of my most favorite subjects these days, the brain. But first, by a show of hands, how many people here have watched the same TV show over and over several seasons, especially a sitcom? There you go. So sitcoms are actually a great simple example of the power of pattern recognition. Haven't you noticed that once you've watched the same show over and over, you start anticipating a character's behavior, or even what they'll say, like Joey Tribbiani saying, "How you doing?" to a girl when he sees that she's pretty. That's because your brain has recognized the patterns associated with that character. So simply put, your brain has matched information from stimulus, what you've seen from that specific episode, with information from memory, what you've seen before, and that equals pattern recognition. As a note, I must confess that science, especially the brain, was never a subject that I was passionate about, but as I've grown older and I've learned new things, I've just become very fascinated by the workings of the brain, especially how it helps me see what's ahead, especially in business. And that's why today my talk is titled Frontal Lobe Reboot, How Pattern Recognition Leads to Innovation. Because I believe in and I am passionate about the brain's ability to bring forth innovation. But what does the frontal lobe have to do with innovation? What is it? So the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that's located right behind your forehead that helps regulate functions that control your thoughts, reasoning, and behaviors. Why does this part of the brain matter? It matters because it's the part that identifies the patterns, and by identifying patterns, you can innovate. As with watching the same show over and over, what I found in business and in life is that the more I feed my brain with new information and the more I actively look for said information, the more patterns start forming in my brain. So one can say that my decision to start my own company came from a gut feeling, like I felt that something was going to happen and change in the travel industry, but in reality it was my brain connecting the dots and identifying the patterns that led me to strongly believe that change was coming in the need to plan your travels very differently. One example of innovation and identifying patterns is Uber. So Uber's co-founder, Garrett Camp, based on his memories and experiences, he recognized that there had to be a less burdensome way and more convenient way to travel around. Another example is how Facebook spent 2 years of engineering resources shifting from mainly web-based to mobile, and that's because Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO, recognized that the pattern said we're going to be mostly mobile and we need to shift to mobile. Sabbaticals. This is something that I believe that companies will want to offer to their employees based on the shift that I've identified in the market. I actually took a sabbatical a few years ago, and I've seen so many of my peers do the same thing that I'm confident based on the patterns that I recognize that it's going to happen. But I also wanted to point out, innovation doesn't have to be creating something new. A lot of times it's making something that already exists better. The Walkman, yes, I was there when it was around. I had one. Why reboot? By now you're probably asking yourself, what does the reboot part have to do with the frontal lobe? Well, in true sitcom fashion, I left the punchline for the end. Reboot. Because I firmly believe, and science agrees actually, that our brain holds the capacity to expand. It's called neuroscience. And learn new things and connect the dots to create for ourselves a better life, career, and business. It is all within our brain's ability to identify the patterns that can lead to innovation, but it depends on what we do to feed it. Are we reading enough? Are we engaging in conversations enough? Are we actively seeking new skills? In the same way that we are encouraged to exercise and eat well, which a lot of people do here in Bend, and we make a conscious effort to do it, we should also make a conscious effort to feed our brain to allow for more patterns to be recognized. So we should continuously be adding new data points into our brain to allow for pattern recognition and move forward in more creative and innovative ways. So before I leave, I have one question to ask. What will you do to reboot your frontal lobe and innovate? Yeah, thank you.